Are Nuance audio glasses a genuine breakthrough for mild to moderate hearing loss, or are they just beautifully packaged hype? Well, the latest independent study shows something very interesting now. Pop legend Martin Kemp, TV presenter Simon Rimmer, and model and lifestyle influencer Georgia Jones all have something in common. They've all publicly shared that they use these glasses for their hearing loss. But here's the real question. Do they actually work? And can we trust the research behind them? Well, in this video, I'll break down the brand new National Acoustic Laboratories study, which is hot off the press. I'll explain what the results really mean and show you the 3 limitations with this study that no one is actually talking about. And by the end of today's video, I'm going to share with you the 3 things that this study proved and the 3 things that it didn't. So you'll know whether these glasses are worth trying or not, and who shouldn't be buying them. For context, I run the largest independent hearing clinic in London, and we fit every major hearing aid technology, including Nuance. In this recent poll that I put out there on YouTube, I asked you, my faithful YouTube audience, if you've ever considered wearing hearing aid glasses instead of hearing aids. And I'll be honest, I was quite surprised with the feedback, with it being pretty much a 50-50 split. And now I'm keen on expanding this poll to any of you watching this video today. So let me know in the comments how you feel about this technology and how you feel about wearing hearing aid glasses instead of hearing aids. Are you a yes, no, maybe, or are you already watching me wearing them right this very second? To the untrained eye, they look like a normal pair of Ray-Bans. However, underneath this glossy frame, there is a deep, dark secret. They're not any old glasses, they're Nuance audio glasses, sporting 6 strategically placed microphones, open-ear directional speakers, onboard digital signal processing that focuses on speech and reduces background noise, and are designed specifically for people with mild to moderate hearing loss, all without anybody knowing that you're actually wearing hearing aids. Now, if you're thinking, well, wouldn't it just be easier to wear a set of hearing aids if you have a hearing loss? And the answer is yes, you're correct. However, the majority of people out there with a mild to moderate hearing loss choose not to, and they let their hearing loss go untreated for reasons of cost, access, or the stigma associated with wearing hearing aids, all of which Nuance are aiming to overcome with this technology. So what exactly has this study proven? Well, this research was conducted by the National Acoustic Laboratories, NAL, who are based in Australia, which is a highly respected independent research body within hearing science. They've been around for donkey's years, and it is huge in the world of audiology. The study was made up of 20 participants, all with a mild to moderate sensorineural hearing loss, with average pure tone thresholds of around 28 decibels. Now, in reality, this is typically the kind of hearing loss which wouldn't necessarily cause you any problems in a quiet room with 1 or 2 people talking simultaneously. However, it would become a little bit more challenging or a little bit more difficult when background noise was introduced, such as a restaurant or group situation. So if this sounds like something that you experience on a day-to-day basis, I think you'll find the rest of this research pretty interesting. The study was broken down into 3 main phases, and I happen to like this. So phase 1 involved controlled lab testing, which of course is important so that we can measure how this technology works under very specific controlled conditions. And then we have phase 2, which involved testing the Nuance glasses in a simulated listening situation, and then asking the participants to subjectively rate their experiences. And then finally, phase 3 was a real-world ecological momentary assessment, which is a completely unnecessary way of saying that they tried them in the real world outside of the lab. So let's break down these results. In the phase 1 lab tests, participants were tested on their ability to understand speech in the presence of background noise, with the speech coming from in front, as you'd normally expect in real life, and the background noise coming from all around. Researchers then measured participants' speech reception thresholds, which is the point in which subjects scored 50% of the words correct. Now, the lower the score, the better, and it tells you how much quieter speech can be relative to background noise before the listener drops to 50% understanding. It sounds complicated, but it's a pretty standard way of measuring the effectiveness of technology in the lab, and it's comparable to other manufacturers as well then, other hearing aid technology as well then. So in practical terms, if somebody's score is plus 7 decibels, then they need speech to be 7 decibels louder than the noise just to get half of the words correct. So what are the results? With the Nuance glasses on and set to frontal mode, which is designed to focus on what's in front and reduce the sound coming from elsewhere, the average improvement was 3.48 decibels signal to noise ratio, which may sound like a small number, but due to the logarithmic way that sound is measured, is actually pretty big. And in reality, it can translate into 30 to 50% better word understanding and a dramatic reduction in listening effort. And here's something that you don't see in many studies. Every single participant performed better when they were wearing the Nuance audio glasses. Let me repeat that. Every single participant. Now, whilst that sounds great, and believe me it does, 3.5 dB SNR improvement is a strong result, at the same time, it isn't real life. But the team at Now were one step ahead and knew that I would raise this when reviewing this study today. And so that's why they included phases 2 and 3. So they then took the lab testing data one step further, simulating real-world environments such as libraries, offices, restaurants, and being surrounded by heavy traffic, each with its own nuances. See what I did there? Whilst the study didn't publish speech reception threshold data, which in my opinion is a curious omission, which I'd like to understand because they did use that measure in phase 1, participants were asked instead to rate their listening preferences on a 5-point scale around key influencing factors such as speech clarity, listening effort, naturalness, and localization. Now again, the outcome, quite positively, was that using the Nuance audio glasses was preferred across every single environment. In fact, in some of the most challenging situations, like a busy cafe, up to 95% of participants actually preferred using the glasses compared to unaided listening, and around 70% reported an improved ability to hear and communicate. Now, understandably, there was only a slight preference in the quiet library setting, and let's face it, this isn't what these things are designed for. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the third and final phase was a real-world assessment, testing the Nuance audio glasses in challenging, real-life, day-to-day encounters, such as those that we all experience. And I'm talking corridors, meeting rooms, busy streets, parks, and cafes. And I think you know where I'm going to go with the results on this. Every single person in this study preferred their experience when wearing Nuance audio glasses in all environments, every single one, particularly in those more complex, noisy environments where people typically struggle the most. Every single one. Now, interestingly, those results again show that in those quieter situations, such as in meeting rooms, hallways, and parks, there was only a minor preference for wearing them. However, I gotta say, it was a preference nonetheless. So, if I were to just base my recommendations solely based on this study, then as there was a preference across the group for all listening environments, then it makes sense that you should give them a go, right? And this is exactly why I've added them to my tech portfolio in my clinic for any patients coming through my doors. Now, saying all of that, I promised you that I would cast a close eye over this study, and that I have. And it has been done well, I will say. However, in my opinion, there are 3 things that need to be looked at in a little bit more detail. In fact, the Now team even highlighted some of them at the end of the document. And as I do with any study that I review here on the Hearing Tracker YouTube channel, I want to share with you all of the details, not just the glowing positivity. So let me share with you the 3 limitations that I've identified to this study today. So firstly, this is a non-blinded study, and in simple terms, that means that participants knew when they were wearing the glasses, obviously. Now, in real-world wearable tech, that's actually quite difficult to avoid, but it does mean that preference-based results, such as comfort and perceived clarity, can sometimes be influenced by expectation. Now, it doesn't invalidate the results, but the placebo effect is something that you have to keep in mind when interpreting this research. Now, my second observation is that this was a relatively small sample of 20 participants, which is fine for a clinical pilot study, but there was quite a broad range of hearing levels included. So what I'd love to see in future research is a tighter focus on the ideal candidate to really understand who benefits from this technology the most. And now my third point is actually quite interesting. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. The authors outline the participants selected their own preferred amplification preset during the setup of this technology. Now, on one hand, that makes the study more realistic because that's exactly how somebody would use this technology and this product in real life. But from a scientific perspective, it does introduce a little bit of variability. because we don't know how the presets were chosen or whether they were optimized for maximum performance. So again, not a flaw, but something that future studies could standardize further. And in my opinion, this means that with the right settings, we could see an even greater preference for this technology across all of the environments we talked about earlier in today's study. So yes, I am delighted with the results of this study. And should you try this tech out? Absolutely, especially as many retailers offer a trial or return period, so you can actually try them in your own environment, in your own world, in the environments and situations that you would naturally struggle in. But more importantly, a lot more importantly, I think this research represents something a little bit bigger than just a single product. For years, one of the biggest problems in hearing care, one of the biggest problems, no question of this, hasn't been the technology. The tech is there and the tech can make a massive amount of difference. But it's been the uptake, and I can't help but feel that what Nuance audio glasses do is to lower that barrier and to remove some of the resistance. They give people with mild hearing difficulties a way to start their hearing journey earlier, without the stigma, without the friction, and without fully needing to commit to traditional hearing aids on day one. And so if this leads to more people engaging with their hearing health sooner, then I am all on board. So the big question around this tech isn't just do they work, it's could this be the first step for millions of people who otherwise would have done nothing about their hearing.